Thank you again, everybody, for attending tonight's webinar with TRI Dental Implants and the one and only Dr. Chris Winterholler. Thank you, Dr. Winterholler, for attending today. Before I get started, I'd like just to give a warm introduction to Dr. Winterholler. I've been very fortunate to know Chris Winterholler for over 15 years. When I first began my Arizona implant journey here as your personal rep, and I saw you as a cutting edge implant dentist, someone that was always forward thinking, very digitally focused, and ahead of the time, I would say, with implant dentistry and the way treatment modalities were taking place. I consider you a personal friend, and a very successful practice you maintain out in Scottsdale, Arizona. The nickname we've always talked about is the word MacGyver. Why you're MacGyver is I do truly believe you can solve pretty much anything that comes into your office. You'll find a way to restore it. You'll find a way to take care of that patient, and someone I looked up to very much in terms of treating patients here in the Arizona area. So very proud to call you a friend, a mentor, and someone I looked up to very much in the world of implantology. You've placed over 16,000 dental implants over 3 decades. You've completed over 3,000 all-on-4 cases, and we're a pioneer early on with angulating distal dental implants before it was very common to place implants straight up and down. You trained at the Malo Clinic in Portugal. You're a renowned speaker and dental implantologist for over 20 years. You're a fellow academy at the General Dentistry, AID, ICOI, and you're an active volunteer in your church here in Arizona. You're a family man, you're a businessman. You grew up in Wyoming. You went to school in Utah at BYU and certainly at Creighton as well for dental school. And we're all really excited to see you speak about your adoption here at the TRI dental implant system and how it's worked in your hands and certainly your practice. Before we get started here, I'm going to just get a quick overview of what is the TRI dental implant system and how we're different from every other dental implant system in the United States and the world. And then we're excited to see you talk about your clinical experience and your case documentation as well. And that's I believe everyone's here to see that. But before we get started here, I'll kind of just make this short and sweet. Let's see here. We're not a new dental implant company if you're just hearing about us. We've been out now roughly 12 years now, starting in January of 2025, 12 years. And we're based in Switzerland. Our CEO also has an extensive experience in the dental implantology field, having started Implant Direct with Jerry Nisnik and selling it at the time. Had a earlier career before Implant Direct at Straumann. And over the last, again, now year 12 here with TRI as our founder. We like to have 4 core values here of our product of simplicity. We think very, very digital. We believe the world is becoming more and more digital each and every day. And that is truly what is impacting many patients in the way treatment plans are being done today is digitalization. We have the highest quality of manufacturing out in Switzerland, and everything is always about patient and patient performance with our implants. So what do abutments do today in our practices? They certainly have a lot of good benefits, and they also come with complications. The benefits is obviously they're intended to correct our implant angulations for prosthetic outcomes. They're certainly intended with every implant system to carry mechanical load forces so our crowns and bridges don't fracture over time. We know it's obviously easier as well to restore at the abutment level up because certainly we can see everything and we can restore our cases much easier from abutment level versus the implant level. However, like I mentioned, they come with complications. For our single unit cases, we see most cases in the United States are being treated with titanium bases in the middle of our crowns. We know at times they become debonded, and that certainly isn't great for patients to have to redo those cases and bring the patients back in. We know the world has evolved to more screw retained restorations versus cement retained restorations, but still see a fair number of true custom titanium abutments that are cement retained, and we know that excess cement does cause implant failures. We see a lot now due to digitalization of all-in-X cases with more and more multi-unit heights and angulations from straight 17-degree, 30, 45-degree. I even see some 60-degree multi-units that are being used. And they come with all different heights. And a lot of times the incorrect selection of these multi-units causes problems in a practice. We know that in order to leave room for multi-units, we have to reduce more patient's bone for these all-in-X cases. We certainly know with these Rosen or Des or Powerball screws, they tend to come loose for our hybrids. And we also know that implant dentistry is not getting less expensive. It's certainly increasing. And if we can reduce costs of abutments and inventory and confusion, that's always a good thing. So just a quick look up a couple slides here. We have seen when a patient gets a full mouth reconstruction, they do tend to at times lift their lip up. And what do we see here? We see, MUAs. So if we certainly can avoid that, I think we'd all agree that's a good prosthetic outcome. And the center picture here just shows a typical titanium base being debonded from a crown and having to redo that case. So what we do everything different. So we're the only FDA-approved implant company in the world where we can eliminate abutments. So what that means is we will be inserting scan bodies directly into the implant. We're going to take an intraoral scan of that, and from there it becomes a design. We will then either 3D print or reverse mill the prosthetic right to the interface of the implant, coupled with this bolt screw that I'll be talking about a little bit in my presentation that carries that mechanical load. And due to that thickness of this bolt screw, we can claim that you're going to essentially see zero screw loosening with your patients. We're going to see no micro movement because there is no abutment to have a micro movement, and we're going to see essentially a zero bone loss concept implant here with no screw loosening. We're going to eliminate a lot of the confusion of platforms and what implant system is this when you're ready to restore your patients. You are simply now in the business of screwing down teeth, crowns, bridges, hybrids right to the implant interface, torquing them down to 35 Newton centimeters, and having an easier prosthetic workflow, we truly believe. So here's just a quick little snapshot of an engaging single unit restoration. So this is a 20-degree beveled conical connection implant. We've seen the implant world evolve to conical based implants, and that is intended for the most possible outcome of bone maintenance, conical implants. And this is a reverse engineer of the interface of a single unit zirconia crown, locking in seamlessly to the implant. And as you can see here, that connection that somewhat looks like a trilobe is not a trilobe. It's simply a timing or index right to the implant where it rests based on your design and locks down. And you'll see this next video here that I'll show you shows the compressive forces where the force structure is put on the screw and not on the crown restoration. And we have studies that indicate that this is actually stronger than abutment level restorations with this patented bolt screw that is so powerful. So no titanium base, more surface area in your crown restoration, no debonding of tie bases, no cement. And we'll talk a little bit about here shortly the angulated screw channel that gives you high prosthetic outcomes as well. So I'm quickly just going to run through a couple of our integrated apps. So we think all have a smartphone, iPhone, Samsung phone. We have a lot of apps that go with those phones. So this is very similar here since we're a digital implant system. We have a lot of integrated apps, applications that make your life easier to work with. And we're going to talk a little about the Scan and Smile in 1 hour. We'll talk about this digital healing collar library that you can download. We'll also talk about the downloadable ScanBridge STL file that will make your lives very easy if you don't have a photogrammetry unit for all NX cases. We'll talk about the tooth in a box or arch in a box. We're also a design company as well, so touch quickly on lab design and also milling. So as I mentioned, if we're looking to get a single tooth dental implant in the aesthetic zone, ways of temporizing that patient today would either be an Essex template retainer, it would be a flipper, or better yet, in today's standard implant companies, you would have a temporary abutment. and you would have a shell where you'd flow Luxatemp to it, a suck down. You would light cure it and bond it, and the patient would leave with a screw-mentable tooth in place. It'd be highly aesthetic, and the patient would leave with a tooth, a screw-retained tooth. Key to note, you can do all three of those workflows today with the TRI implant system that would not cause any disruption in your practice. However, option 4, which I believe is the best solution, would be to place a TRI matrix dental implant in the aesthetic zone. Insert, you will get high insertional torque on the implant. Insert a scan body. And as I mentioned, we're a design company, which I'll show you. We're able to fabricate a design for you within 20 minutes for $20. So if on demand, so if I know I was placing a dental implant at 12 o'clock, if I knew I was done by 12:30, our designer will be on standby for you at 12:30, do the proper design for you and send it back to you, STL format, 3D printed format, to send to your 3D printer to provisionalize right on the spot where your patient will leave a perfect tooth in place. And let's walk you through that case right now. So this is my good friend Ryan Dunlop in Fresno, California. This is his Scan and Smile in 1 hour case. Again, not to take any steam from Dr. Winterholler, because you do this quite frequently in your practice, but this is a classic case that we'll see a fractured tooth. We'll certainly bring the patient in. We'll extract the tooth. We will drill our osteotomy and insert a TRI matrix dental implant with high initial stability. As I mentioned, we will insert a scan body within a matter of minutes. We will take our intraoral scan. We will do the design for you, again, roughly in 20 minutes. And we will send to the 3D printer in print format in roughly another 20 minutes, a quick stain and glaze. And roughly in 1 hour, the patient will leave with a perfect tooth in place and on their way. The best part of this is we believe we will also eliminate the next patient visit. Since the soft tissue will adhere nicely to this perfectly tooth in place that was once there, we believe that the same exact STL file that was used for the print will be used for the final restoration. So we will send that file to a TRI milling center or the doctor's own mill to be fabricated. In the very next appointment, we will remove the temporary and simply screw down a final zirconia restoration right to the interface and deliver this perfect restoration to our patient, eliminating the patient visit, eliminating abutment cost, and giving a superior aesthetic outcome for this patient. Key to note, we see the TRI implant right next to a Neodent implant side by side, and I would argue this radiograph looks a little better comparing side by side. So it's nice to be able to avoid that flipper, avoid that excess template, or even avoid that temporary abutment and go to option 4. And again, just key to note, if you did not have a 3D printer, we can overnight you a printed tooth the next business day, which I'll talk about. We'll next quickly touch on the digital healing collar library, which I think is a fantastic advantage for your single unit molar cases, where a patient in today's most likely treatment outcomes, they're leaving in the molar site with a metal healing abutment in place. This, I do believe, is a step, one step above, where this is an anatomical, customized white healing abutments that you 3D print, or we can send these to you at no charge. They're intended for, as we see here, anteriors, premolars, upper molars, molar 2s, and all the different common sizes here. As we see here in an extraction implant placement, we see that the way this healing abutment is placed, it follows the sulcus. It follows where, very similar anatomy and profile of a tooth. We can take it even a step further and stain and glaze it if we wanted to. And again, it's, I believe, a superior healing abutment restoration that's free of charge and customized for the patients. We also want to hear a little bit about All-in-X, and we believe we have significant advantages with our All-in-X treatment plan of divergence up to 50 degrees. And this here will also show the angulated screw channel up to 30 degrees, what also makes this implant possible because we all don't want screw access soles coming out our facial. So based on design, we would use a different screw and drop the screw right in with the angulated ball driver 2.6 angulated screw. So quickly touching on full arch. We have an alternative to with or without photogrammetry. So as I mentioned, the scan bridge is a downloadable or printable STL file. I like to say it comes in an extra small, small, medium, large, extra large. Depending on your AP spread, you would insert your dental implants. You would insert then the titanium scan bodies that can be used as scan bodies and open tray impression copings, either or. And then you would seamlessly click in with our scan bridge directly to the scan bodies and have a little composite right at the midline here where a traditional intraoral scanner will be able to capture the positioning to get you to the design phase, to get you to the 3D printing phase, all within a standard time. If you do have photogrammetry, we are a big advocate of photogrammetry, where in today's workflow, you would place your implants, put multi-units on, and you'd put your ICAM or PIC or micromapper scan bodies directly to the multi-units. Since we were avoiding multi-units, you would insert the same exact ICAM scan bodies directly to the interface, and it would be the same exact workflow as you do today. And I know Dr. Winterholler, you'll be showing a case like that, as well as a scan bridge case. So the best, in summary here, you have the best of both worlds, where if you have photogrammetry, it is business as usual. And if you don't have a photogrammetry in it, you can certainly incorporate our scan bridge that is essentially free of charge to be able to get you accurate positioning for your printed provisional. And avoid other alternatives such as OptiSplint. Another thing I think is advantage, as I mentioned, there's no Rosen screws, there's no Powerball screws. That's additional cost, additional friction, I do believe, in the restorative process that's avoided, and potentially also less bone reduction for patients, since we don't need to leave room for our multi-unit abutments anymore. This just quickly shows here with the Trios 5, here scanning the scan bridge, takes roughly 90 seconds. That then allows you to upload, as I mentioned, to get a proper design. If you don't have a designer, we do the design for you for $250 in roughly 60 minutes. But again, if you have your own designer you prefer, no problem whatsoever. They'll be able to also design with ease our TRI Matrix Zero abutment solution with this with a scan bridge or photogrammetry. So just due to time, I think everybody gets the idea here. We'll move on from the scan bridge. Many of you may ask, well, gosh, how is it possible without an abutment to carry that force?
Station where
So what we did here is we have a live study here
on a ground, which we just have
you'll see.
freshly cut, and we have a packaged tissue level matrix implant, and we have a 2.8 zirconia screw. And then we can go on 35 Newton centimeter. So then I have this cylinder, and I place the implant in the cylinder on this ground. I'm going to add as much weight as least as we tested it in our official test. So that's the first 1.25 kilo, 7.5. This is the next 2.5 kilos, 25 kilos. Right now we have 80 kilos, the maximum of any human can bite. So how is your bet? What do you think? How much more? 100 more? 150 kilos on one single crown, 165 kilos. Okay, to finish that, I will add all the kilos on it. 177, that's enough. Woo! I think that's amazing.
And as Holger cast one of our chief engineers and head of also training education, CDT. I think it is pretty amazing. And key to note, his name is on the patent for our matrix implant, as well as he developed the Straumann bone level tapered implant, and his name is on that patent as well. So we have some brilliant engineers at TRI, and quite impressive. We also have lots of independent white paper studies, university studies showing the mechanical strength and forces, as I mentioned, and billions of chewing cycles from polished zirconia titanium showing little to no wear, and certainly our bridges and arches not breaking, and studies showing they're actually stronger than abutment level restorations. As I also mentioned in part of our applications, we are also the only implant company to date that is also a design company, as well as owns a FDA-approved milling center that's based in Orange County, California, that is involved in finished and unfinished prosthetics, I believe at the highest quality, at the best pricing in the US. So if you do not have an in-office mill, we believe we have a superior solution for you to offer, again, milled and centered, so unfinished single unit implant crowns and full arch milled and centered prosthetics, as well as the finished product right to your door as well. And we can see the pricing here. So from a full arch design, $250, to a single tooth design, $20 in 20 minutes. We have a full arch milled zirconia milled centered for $600, a very high aesthetic all on X hybrid for $999. And I call this the Rolls Royce, your Beverly Hills 90210 patient for $1,500. And then we see the single unit crowns from 60 unfinished to now starting finished at 110, 160, and 180. This next slide here may be a little difficult to see on my screen, but we certainly can send this to you. If you did not have a 3D printer for your All-on-X cases, we overnight you the teeth, including design, for $375 the next business day. So you can deliver the All-on-X teeth by 10:30 in the morning. We're also a surgical guide and planning company, and have most solutions for you to treat your patients with implantology. We offer a 10-year guarantee as well on all our prosthetics. Many of you may ask what it takes to get started with our implant system. We're highly competitive in terms of pricing. I'll show you here shortly a slide for our cost calculator. But we believe from a root to tooth solution, we're the best price in the entire United States, from single unit to full arch. For little under $7,000, we send you everything you need, from scan bodies to final screws to all your tooling, 25 implants. It gets you set up where there's no additional cost. We're also a distribution partner for Sprint Ray 3D printing, which was my previous home. We give you, if you buy 100 matrix implants, we set you up with a free 3D printer ecosystem. And key to note, that also includes the training. So I would say one last application is we're also a consultation company. We have actual dentists on staff that come support you surgically, restorative-wise, as well as for 3D printing or anything digital workflow in your practice if you struggle with. We onboard your clinic seamlessly. I truly believe it's some of the best in the business. So if you're new to 3D printing, don't worry, we onboard you in office as part of this as a no service additional cost to working with our products. This is the Winterholler special, so thank you, Dr. Winterholler, for being so kind and generous here. If you get started with any kind of package with us, we're going to be giving you, as part of attending this webinar, a free zirconia arch or 3 final zirconia implant crown restorations, your choice. This also can be redeemed on any implant system. So if you have an arch out there on your Nobel, your Neodent, your Implant Direct, whatever the implant system is, we're happy to restore that for you with this voucher here. We believe at the highest quality aesthetics. And we also offer 0% financing as little as $572. We can get you set up in our system. One arch covers that alone, we believe, over 5 months. And if you're looking to get into that 3D printer, we're throwing in this nano curing unit and an arch kit with a ball of Onyx Tough. We could talk more about that, but also I highly encourage you just to scan this QR code as you see on my screen here. This will truly show you where I like to believe the true savings would come in for you. So we know it's much more just than the dental implant cost to restore your patient. There's a lot of other different fees that come along with that. So I like to say from a true apples to apples comparison, we're your best bang for the buck and the best quality in the implant space as well. So please scan here, do that quick analysis. It will send you a PDF. You'll be able to compare every line item to your current implant provider to us. And I do believe this will be a pretty powerful little 5-10 minute exercise for you. Also, feel free to scan here as well, unlock 3 implant crowns for you, and come learn more. We're really excited to and passionate about this implant brand. We believe it has significant advantages to your patients and your practice, and certainly less confusion for your staff members that work with you. So feel free to scan there. And that's who I am. This is year 20 for me in the dental implant business, and really proud to be part of TRI USA's US president. There's my cell phone. If you have any social media, there's my Instagram handle. Looking forward to work with you all. And now, as I mentioned, you're really here to see the MacGyver of dental implants, Mr. Chris Winterholler.
Hey, everybody,
Take it away,
this
my
is,
friend.
can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Chris, that was a great presentation. I think you sold me on the TRI implant, even though I've got to give the stuff coming up, but great information. Most of my content that I have tonight will be reinforcing or reiterating some of the stuff that Chris said. Let me give you a little bit of history about my interaction with the TRI implant company. Just out of curiosity, I wanted to get on the plane back in 2019 and fly to the Cologne IDS dental show, and heard that it's like the Disneyland for dentists. And I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to hang out with anybody. I just wanted to walk the convention floor and see the coolest stuff there. And the TRI implant was definitely one of them, but it took me a while to wrap my head around it. And I know that some of the dentists out there are probably here maybe to hear some of the story of some of the bump and grind or the knocks that I had incorporating this fully into my workflow. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen here and get into a PowerPoint that we have. And let me see right here. So we're going to share. Okay, did it pop up?
It is there, yes. You're not in the presentation mode, but we see your screen.
There, we're presentation mode now. Is everything good?
Looks good.
Okay, so I did kind of a version of this for Chris before, but we've added some additional cases and some information that we've learned along the way. I realize that of the people attending tonight, there are people that have gone whole hog with the digital workflow, scanners, mills, printers, all that stuff that's in office. This is a great implant. It's the next level of service beyond those, adding those in-house laboratories. But as Chris pointed out, they've got this design service that for 20 bucks, you know, they can be on deck for you to have that implant placed. Then you can put it in your own printer, or they can FedEx it to you overnight. I think that's pretty powerful. So just to, you know, Chris already introduced me. I am a diplomate of the ICOI. I got that in 2012. I got my FAGD about 2010. I've been on the faculty at my alma mater in the Department of Fixed Prosthodontics. I've published some articles in Compendium, Practical Periodontics and Aesthetic Dentistry. I think they've changed the name of that magazine now. I've spoken for quite a few of the implant companies that you guys are all familiar with over the years, just on All on 4, restoring teeth with CEREC, those sorts of things. Here's the implants I've used in my since 1995. I call myself a toilet tank dental implant catalog reader. I have an ability to retain information about connections and looking at things and being able to recognize implants. I've got a couple dental colleagues that will text me just random x-rays all the time and ask me to identify it for them. And I bring this up because we all have that problem where a patient had implants placed many years ago. Now you're trying to convert a case, put some new prosthetics on them, convert them to an all-on-4. But we've got to figure out the abutment. So we go to these websites that tell us what the abutment is. We call the office. They lost the record. It's frustrating. The world of abutments is going to live with us for 20 years. But I see if we get on the TRI wagon, it's so easily identifiable, and it's also something that just eliminates the abutment altogether, which I think is a huge advantage. But here's some of the stuff I've used. I want you to ask the question, why would you even consider moving away from something that you're already familiar with, that's already part of your armamentarium? It's your workflow, it's your staff's familiarity. It's also a screwdriver integration problem, because if we've done multiple implants, we're dealing with a lot of different screwdrivers that sometimes if the hygienist is servicing somebody's all-on-4 and they use the wrong screwdriver, they end up stripping out the screw, and then they have to call me in to get them out. We've all lived that nightmare, and it's not fun. So why should you even consider this? Chris talked about this. Let me go over it again just to reinforce his ideas. You know, I think one of the big problems that I've had with these thousands of arches that we've done is dealing with that M1.4 standard multi-unit screw. The major manufacturers make them some sort of a black coating on them. Those seem to last better than the ones that you buy from the online providers. But the broken screws, the strip screws, the heads that you have to drill out, I'd really like to eliminate that. It seems inconceivable that we're not at the stage up until 2019 that we're not trying to reinvent that multi-unit abutment. It's due for an improvement or just an elimination altogether. And this implant I have found over the last year that I've been using it seems to be the answer. So I'm going to point with my mouse here, this little M1.4 screw. We're all familiar with that. We struggle with when we get into our printed or our final milled restorations. Are we going to put a tie base in, or are we not going to do a tie base? We've gone to, on these cases, we don't want a tie base, but that took a lot of effort to get to the time when we could mill accurately enough, specifically with photogrammetry, because when you do manual impressions, you're going to introduce a little bit of error. If you've got binding upon seating, I can promise you 100% of the time it's because the error is introduced by the impression material, by pouring up the model, by scanning, by milling. Those are additive in the effect that that's why those screws bind. When you get over into a photogrammetry environment, or like in TRI with the scan bridge, which I'll explain how that works, you're not going to have binding anymore. And when they bind, the tie base tends to dislodge and become uncemented, and that's a very frustrating appointment to have a patient deal with. So TRI, we're getting rid of tie bases, which is a big headache for all-on-4 providers. Screw breakage, no standard screw. You know, the question of, are we going to use Rosen, Vortex, Powerball, Nobel, Des, Sin PRH30? You know, there's some compatibility issues, there's some milling issues, exocat or 3-shape issues. If you're not using photogrammetry, you're not really a serious player for these types of restorations. Let me advance this slide here. So as Chris pointed out, I'm not going to dwell on this slide much. We know what the multi-unit abutment is. It's the interface between the implant and the restoration, where that's completely eliminated with the TRI all-on-4. Now remember, when Chris showed you some images of the interface or the connection to the TRI. It had a little kind of a knob in the middle of it that is your anti-rotation groove that's cut into the prosthetic or the crown. When we do a TRI all-on-4 case, we specify in the design library that it's going to be non-indexed. And so you'll see some of those coming up that allow us to be able to create a passive fit up to 50 degrees off angle on these, and to have those screws, those 2.8 millimeter large diameter screws, just glide through, engage into the internal hex thread of the implant, and secure the implant. Really slick. Now, there is two different platforms with the TRI. They've got a P37 and a P45. You see the little connections right here. And this is a bone level implant that they make with the same connection. So if you want to put those right at the interface of the bone, this is the implant you'd use that's not anodized the pink color. I tend to deviate more towards the pink anodized that have this little concave tissue adaptation feature that you're going to leave that super bony for the threaded and blasted part of the implant, and let that little pink interface be the tissue depth, the little bulbous beer belly part of that being convex gives you a little kind of a donut or collar of tissue. I'm going to come back to this slide in a minute because I want to talk about this. If you look at the little hex in the top of this little non-index thing that the machine, when you're milling or printing, will cut in there so that that fits into this little knob right here. Do you guys see my pointer? Chris, is the pointer active on the screen?
It is, yes.
Okay. So this little index matches up with this little guy right there, and is your anti-rotation portion of it. So that's machined into the little index here. Now you're thinking, how does this machine? It's easy to print these types of restorations when they do like an angled screw channel. That's not an issue. But when you mill them, the only types of milling machines that really work with this angled screw channel have to have a burr that looks something like this. This is called a T-cutter. And so the guys that are looking at machining these, or even the lab techs that are on here, you know, we have an IMUS iCore 350 Pro Plus that this particular tool is specifically made for. And the cool thing about this tool is, look at this little tip right here. And the tool path goes up this direction down through here, and it then moves to the side, because this is only 2 millimeter shank. This is a 2.8 millimeter hole, and it moves around and cuts that little land area that the screw rests on. And then the angled screw channel side can be milled at whatever angle that you want, probably up to 35 degrees for like a Zirconzon or a IMUS iCore. But I can explain that more later if you guys have questions on it. Just be mindful that that's why TRI requires a certified milling center to be able to mill these crowns, specifically if they're for angled screw channel. I've milled them without the angled screw channel on, of all machines, a Sirona MCX5, a 5-axis, you know, junker that I bought in 2015. But I'm using that as my workhorse, where I line the implant up on the long axis of where the screw channel is going to be. So lots of different ways to do this, but if you're going to do angled screw channels, your machine has to have these T-cutters in it, made by this company right here. I'm going to do next slide. Let's see. You're going to gain some restorative space by not having that multi-unit abutment in there. Some of the thinnest ones have like a 0.5 height or a 1 millimeter height. So we're going to regain that when we move to go direct to the implant. You can also design these with no saddle. We all know that if the the saddle is made on the all-on floor like it is on this, it's going to be a hygiene problem. I wish the industry would get wise, that sells implants beyond TRI, and quit showing these saddled prosthetics, because that gets implanted in people's minds. And the lab techs think it's okay to make them like that because the depictions in the catalog show them that way, but they're completely wrong. And the cases that I've had to replace were with designs that would come back and we had a concavity up underneath there that is not cleansable by the patient. I do think that this TRI implant is probably going to be the winner for the FP1. I saw FP1, flame up really intent about 2 years ago, and then all of a sudden it died back. It's ridiculously difficult to execute an FP1, particularly on an immediate extraction case, because those implant placements have to be absolutely perfect, even if you do multi-unit abutments. So the FP1s that I've done, they're rare. Yes, they're desirable, but the types of cases that I mostly see are people that they've lost so much bone that the FP1 is not even a consideration. You're going to find in a practice that of all the full arches you do, I'm going to estimate 80 to 85% of them are going to be FP3, not an FP1. So just beware that, people are out there shaming people to quit reducing bone. If you get into a board complaint, that's the first thing they're going to go after you on. I've been there, where if you don't reduce enough bone, there's always some prosthodontist around willing to pull out an article and tell you did it wrong, and you're going to lose the case. So reduction is still the method that has to be done, but you might not have to do as much of it with the TRI, because we're going to show you a slide coming up that really shows you the difference in how that can make in the strength of the prosthetics. This truly is a full digital workflow. It's less desirable to do these with impression material. Any of these scanners I'll show you on the next screen with a scan bridge or with your photogrammetry unit are going to work just fine. They're going to be accurate. They're going to be something that you can accurately predict. So Chris showed a lot of this. I'm not going to beat it back, but these, I think this is the vortex screw right here. This is the Rosen screw. I've used quite a few Rosen screws. I still have to buy these because the cases I did on them, I'm sorry, these come back fractured. You take them in and out for hygiene visits. You don't want to put the same one back in because this little guy stretches. So Rosen screws are going to be the bane of my existence for a while, because for about a year we went whole hog on them. And only certain milling machines can mill these, funnel type retentive elements on these. So I've shied away from these. Not a bad idea, not a great idea. Of course, this is the PRH30 with the SIN. I do quite a few cases of my traditionals with these. And the difference with the PRH30 is that these are 3 millimeters long from thread to thread instead of 2. So you actually get an extra millimeter. It's 2 millimeters of the zirconia land area right here when you use the PRH30. I think this one's the Powerball right here. And it uses the same principle as the PRH30, but it rounds out the angles right here. I could give you a PhD in screws, but all of these are 1.4 millimeter in diameter. That's a problem. The FDA wouldn't approve a mini implant that's 1.4 millimeters in diameter for a fixed restoration, but yet we're relying on a 1.4 millimeter screw to retain a full arch of prosthetics. That's why we're having problems. That's why these probably are going to be relics of the past soon. This, with a TRI, you got a 2.8 millimeter screw that's engaging and giving you lots of zirconia to clamp that thing down. You saw that little trick that Holger did with all of the barbells that he put on there, where, I was sitting in there in my head translating from metric system, that's about 330 pounds he had on those. That's pretty powerful. This is just slick. It's great to see these on these cases I've got coming up of how easy that is to bolt these in, and they go right in with no problem. But I'm anxiously getting rid of my 1.4 screws, all of them. Here's why. Look at the green state of the arches that we've milled. So this being the standard, and if you've done enough of these, sometimes your designer doesn't take these trumpets and reinforce this little area with zirconia. And if he does that, this might not clamp down all the way unless you take your egg coarse grit diamond and go in there and chew some of that gingiva out so we can get this to fully seat. This is nicely designed, but this little ledge, it's only about 1 millimeter wide. That's a handicap. Some of us that mill direct the multi-unit abutment will see these on hygiene as we take these out. These will be chipped or fractured at the edge. When these were designed, the force of retention is built so that it's all on that little millimeter right there. There's not much of the force on this. There's not much force on the screw unless your screw channel is not accurately milled. Then you get a little bit of bind in there so the screw gets stretched on one side versus the other, and then they start to break. So a lot of little problems with this unless you've got photogrammetry, very accurate milling machines, and you're staying within the limits of the off axis of the milling machine. Where this one, look at how much zirconia you've got that's in interface with that. There's a couple millimeters. It's got a 20-degree lead-in bevel. So we know what the platform switch does. This is a platform switch connection, just like your platform switch with, I think, your Niznik, Zimmer, Legacy. They've got a 45-degree lead-in bevel to that internal hex. That's a pretty good implant. I think it's better than the Nobel one that's got a 16-degree lead-in bevel, or the SIN 16-degree, because they mill so much titanium off the outside of that implant to get that to fit that, Chris was my Nobel rep way back in the day. I mean, we did thousands of Nobel implants. About 2015, I just decided I'm having too many problems with these things. The bone's dying away from them. They split because they use that commercially pure titanium. They're multi-unit little screw at the top of the multi-unit splits. And I'm not here to bad talk them. I mean, they got us here to this point. But we need a company like TRI to come in here and shake the whole world up. Solve the problem that if you guys all sit there and think about it, where are your problems with the all-on-4? It's you guys. You guys have screw breaking. You don't have accurate interface to the connection. That's eliminated with this system. You're not going to see these breaking. By the way, I need to point out, this arch is wrongly designed. Can you tell me why, Chris? I'm going to give you a pop quiz.
Are you talking about the standard arch?
The TRI, this
That's
one
good.
right here. What's wrong with this connection?
So I'm guessing that's that's for an engaging, right?
Right. This is an
Yep.
index connection. And this has to do with how your designer sets up his design. So for the designers that are on this webinar, we want to make sure that when you have 4 implants, we want these to passively fit. We don't want to select the indexed option from the scan body. So I'm showing you a visual that is in error. We shouldn't have been showing this, but that's the only picture I had of it. Actually, you know what? I think I pulled this from the TRI website. So you follow what I'm saying? This little button shouldn't be there.
I follow you.
So new concept. Already talked about this. I'm going to skip this slide. Chris showed this very well. Some of these new printed resins are, I mean, they're getting dang close. In fact, there's one of them that's actually better as far as its elastic modulus, its compressive strength, its shear strength than what Vita Mark II blocks for CEREC were. for many years. They're up in the 200s now, where Vita Mark II was 143 megapascals of strength. So the printeds are, we're approaching permanent restorations with printed stuff. Here's a case that we did just last Friday. I apologize, we had to throw together some new material, but this guy, I saw him in 2015. We did a couple implants and crowns. The guy moved to Florida. He flew all the way back last Thursday night, for me to take his number 6 out that had broken off at the gum line and to put one of these TRI implants in. And this was one of these difficult extractions where the thing broke off right at the gum line. I had to use these periotomes to get this root out, to preserve all the bone. I mean, it usually takes me no more than just a few minutes to get a tooth out. I was there for 45 minutes wiggling this thing out, but I was patient. We used that little mallet to try to get between the tooth and the bone. And we finally got it out, left the bone intact, and then we're able to put a 16 millimeter implant in. So here I am. We've condensed it, but I worked that thing and worked that thing, finally got it wiggling up in there. I'm not even sure. Yep, we got it out. These are great. If you have trouble getting canines out, that's the trick to get, is those tapered osteotomes. I'm going to skip the slide. This is the 4.1 final drill. I guess we did it to 13. I tried to imagine where that drill, where the screw channel was going to be. So if I've got the bone that's available, I want to put that shank of the latch lock right where the screw is going to be coming out, because that means I can mill it with the standard approach and the standard 2.8 millimeter screw. Pay attention when you start using these, because there's different kinds of prosthetic screws you can use. This one right here is the M2.8. That's the big one. That's for milling things straight through and attaching to the implant with the straight screw channel. So with this canine, we were able to place it ideally. This one worked. When you use the angled screw channel, you have to use this one. Can you see that right there? I'll read it off. It's the 2.6. But the designer has to know which ones you're using so that they can accurately design the correct interface with the screw. I like the packaging on these. It's really slick and Swiss. It's got a little clear dome on top of it that snaps off. They actually milled the mount into the plastic so that this actually has to be cracked off by rotating counterclockwise. And it's got a cover screw that's built into it right here on the side. I'll play the video so you can see it. Great surgical kit, Swiss quality. Really like the fit and finish of everything. This is a case we did right after that one that we saw last week, where this girl had orthodontics. We opened up the space where her bicuspids were to be, and we put 2 TRI 11.5 4.1s in. I mean, they go in fast and quick. This was one of the pink collar or tissue level implants. And we put a couple cover caps on this because she's still finishing up her Invisalign. We don't want to restore yet.
Well done.
I think this is a duplicate slide, or we'll get through it. So there's what the first case looks like with the implant placed. You can see I've got the angle right there so that it comes out where the cingulum is. Our incisal edge is going to be, from this little marginal ridge to this little marginal ridge. So you'll see when I come up to the design, which I've got scans on, that I barely threaded the needle on this one. We use a Trios 5. Best scanner on the market. If you ask me, it's expensive, but it's worth it. He also needed a new crown, which we did on this. the Trios, I mean, it's kind of goof proof. I've worked with every Cerac machine there ever was since Cerac 2 back in 1999. The blue cam, the Omni, the red cam, I guess I got the order of those wrong. I like the Itero a lot. I love the Medit software. I hate the Medit scanner, but it would suffice for smaller cases. For full arch, it can't track all that well. Probably would track well with a scan bridge. So if you have a Medit i700, you'll probably be okay. But if you're looking for a scanner that's the bomb, I mean, the dental assistants fight over this scanner, is the Trios 5. You can see how easy it is, even for a dope like me, to go in there and scan this abutment really quick. Next slide. Kind of redundant slide, so that's putting a cover. I always put the little healing cap over the top of it before I bone graft. And that way I don't pack any bone graft down in the implant connection. This is capturing the bite, which with Trios is like instant. Amazing. So Chris talked about this. I'll skip over this quick. I have 2 different design softwares. We do all of our own design. So I walk from my surgical room where the implant's placed. We upload all of our files from whatever scanner we're using at the moment to a Dropbox shared folder. And then when I get to the computer where my Zircon's on or my ExoCAD machines are, I just go to Dropbox, download the files, put them in the appropriate catalogs, and start my design. And it's pretty slick. So this is the same file that's imported via STL in, and it's at the position where I pick the screw. So this one, I'm thinking I'm going to use that 2.8 screw right here. You can see that right over here. This was all defined. I used the P45 engaging connection implant, and I used the TRI dental implant. Yep, everything's right there. This is what I'm showing you. Now, when it shows you that you need to mark, this was one of the things I struggled with at first, learning this system and doing my own designs. It's very specific in ExoCAD or Zircon's on, or probably in 3Shape, that you click on this little dot right here when you see on this left-hand side of the screen, and then you find this little corresponding, you click on the same spot. Because what the software sometimes will do, it'll flip this around and cause a problem for you. Let me show you why, because remember that little anti-rotation pin? It's right there. And if you go back to my screen that I had before showing the surgery, that's where it's at. So the dentist needs to confirm with the designer, if it's not him, that this is where the implant is. I'm saying this because I got my lab tech on the webinar tonight. We haven't really had this conversation yet because I've been cheating and doing my designs for him. But you always got to remember, ask the dentist where that little retentive pin was so that they can make sure when they line it up, it's in the right place. That was kind of a stumbling point for us at first, but we got through it, and now I can explain it to you why that's a problem. So here's the design.
Yes, I got it.
Yep. I'm going to advance through this, and that's just showing clicking, tracing a margin for that crown that we did. But here's the first tooth proposal. So I'm going to move this with my move, rotate, scale tools to get a tooth in the right position. This is done on Zircon's on software, which is essentially the Ford Lincoln Mercury of ExoCAD. The Trader Joe's of ExoCAD. So we got the shape we want. Look at where that screw channel is. I mean, I'm not that great of an implantologist because it's coming right through the incisal edge. But the trick with this case is I can still do angled screw channel. I just have to go back and tell it. But I thought I'm going to push the limits because I bet I can move that screw channel just in the Zirconzon software 7 to 12 degrees, which you'll see in the next slide. I'm going to stop this one. So you see it kind of coming out right at that incisal edge. And we're going to go in there and move that. Now notice I didn't go and change the screw. I'm still using the 2.8. It's only supposed to be used for the straight ones. But I'm going to move this to 12 degrees just to get it off that incisal edge. And it worked. So not supposed to work. That's a cheat. But it's not hard set that you've got to have it straight every time. We're able to get that screw channel to come out right on the inside ideal result. That's just more of it right here. Now, here's what the proposal looks like. So you can see the index that's cut into the zirconia crown right there. That keeps this from rotating around. That normally would have been the index hex on the abutment inside of it, and then just the odd geometry on the top of your custom abutment. It's all built into this. We milled this out on a Zirconzon. It took 34 minutes to mill that crown, which was actually quite a long time. That Sirona in lab, we did one day before yesterday. It milled one out in 12 minutes. And so go Sirona. It beat the Zirconzon. I couldn't believe it. My lovely assistant, Becky. Had to give her a plug. Here it is milling for all the Tool Time Tim geeks that like to watch this stuff. Chris Luter's feeling the heat right there. And then I showed you the milled crown where we got that 2.8 screw coming out that cingulum. Not perfect ideal placement because I didn't want to mess it up. And we were able to get that crown. I think I got a video coming up. Yep. There's the 2.8 screw, the big dog. It fit right up in that channel. Little index is cut on it. Nice big girthy screw, none of that M1.4 junk. You know, we want to go with the big one, the 2.8, especially on a canine. This is a life changer, that screw. This whole implant. I mean, to not have to look on the desk website ever again my whole life, this is fantastic. I think I'm going to geographically locate my practice so I don't have to deal with all the stuff I've done for 30 years. Just go and start fresh new with just TRI. There's the finished product. So believe it or not, we're doing this in less than an hour, and that's including milling right now, because the implant, you know, if the tooth comes out or if it's a edentulous ridge, you know, your implant takes you 5 to 8 minutes to place. Your scanning takes you 2 or 3 minutes. The design takes you 10, 15 minutes max. Milling 34 minutes. We just ran one of those Brillo pad polishing wheels on this and put it in there. But literally on Monday, the one we did in the Payson office with that Sirona in lab was less than an hour to have a patient walk out with a brand new, I mean, it's a PMMA. This is going to last for a year. And then like Chris said, the tissue is going to heal to this. We might as well just mill this thing in zirconia and get it made so the patient can come back and get that done. Or, you know, he could come back in a couple of days and we'd have it done in zirconia and just be done with it altogether. Here's an all-on-4 case that we did with TRI. For those of you unfamiliar with the full digital process, we use these fiduciary markers that are screwed onto the pallet. This is kind of the cliff notes. There's the scan body going on with the video. Here's the scan bridge that Chris talked about. Really slick to be able to put that 2.8 screw in and torque it down. And I mean, this was a all on four in less than 2 hours, including the print, which was 34 minutes. Pretty slick. I'm going to get rid of that. So this is kind of a little, for guys unfamiliar that are still doing it the analog way. I was working in a practice as a favor to one of my family members last year, and they just didn't want to do digital. They were stuck on doing the old conversions of the immediate denture. And I finally just got so tired of it. I just said, that's it. I'm done. I'm going back home. I'm just going to work in my own office. But the way you do it is you screw these, you can use just any old junk that you can screw in onto the roof of the mouth before you take your scans after the patient's numbed and sedated. So this is the old, you know, for those that used to watch Sesame Street, like other 58-year-olds like me, the trick is you're using that song they sung on Sesame Street. One of these things doesn't match the other. And so you're trying to give this an image that it's going to see before you take the tooth out and after you take the tooth out that can be cross-referenced and matched up to each other. So we screw these little Instarisa scan bodies in on the palate, and that gives that thing that doesn't change after you've taken the teeth out. I'm a big fan of this Mectron alveoplasty machine. It's a piezo that nowadays what I do is I just flap the tissue back, expose the bone, and I start making a cut all along where I want my, from 15 millimeters right here, all the way down to this cut. So I get the calibrated reduction of the bone that I need every time without having to spend an expensive surgical guide. I just use the incisal edge of the tooth. So you see this little cut right here, and then I'll cut between the teeth. This makes it so that these are 5-second extractions on every single one of these teeth. So you're going to spend 10 minutes going and cleaning up the bone. You've scored up the line of where you want your reduction to be. And then you can more easily extract the tooth without damaging all this up here and losing bone that you want to keep. I think this is a video. Yeah. Here's this in action. So this is something I figured out watching Brazilian implantologists that use the Mectron for harvesting bone graft. You see how this thing just cuts interproximally between those? And I've already got my line scored up the top. So I can't recommend this Mectron thing enough. It's powerful enough that it works like that electrician that comes to your house and uses a little thing that goes like this and cuts the hole in the wall to add your new electrical outlet. And then he can fish the wire up there. That's exactly how this works. It's a square hole cutting saw. But that's just a little trick that I use to make these cases so that my teeth are out in just a matter of a few minutes on these all-on-4 cases. My bone is prepared. It's pre-calibrated. We're putting implants in on a lot of these arches just within, 10 or 15 minutes of starting the case, because we use these tools to not only control the environment, give us a better result, and get the teeth out quicker. And then these little blocks chip right out. So look at that. That's how much bone I wanted gone. Perfectly flat, ready for these implants to go. So get the teeth out fast and clean. Scored line allows us to visualize the aperture of the smile. Measured controlled reduction of bone. Makes the bone platform flat. Facilitates the hygiene. And just that's the way to go. So look at how nice and flat that ridge is. Look at how my tissues all, I've taken a scissor in there and I've cleaned up my flaps, preserved the keratinized tissue. And you can still see this little fiduciary marker on there. That's going to be the thing that we scan first when we go back in to line up those scans where my new scan bodies are going to be. So little surgery vignette here. Implants work the same as all the implants. They're similar in feel to the Straumann tissue level. And I've had a few complaints that Chris has addressed with the geometry of the implant's going to be changed as of January 1st to make them feel more like a Nobel Active or a Straumann bone level implant. I like the implants where my saying's always been, it's not about the hole, it's about the drill. If you gave me one drill in a surgical kit, we'd figure out a way to make the hole that we want. And with these implants, you have to drill precise depth. And they're going to change the geometry of the apex of the implant to make it so that they'll self-pilot into laminar bone, which that'll be a big improvement. But just have to remember, drill your depth exactly how you want it, and you'll be able to put these implants in. So it's a little bit of an adjustment on the surgical kit at first, but they tighten up nice. You know, you get 50, 60 Newton centimeters in type 3 and 4 bone on these. I was very impressed. Here's the scan bodies going on. They've got short ones, they've got long ones. I like using that little buttonhole technique where I take my rongier and I clip the tissue up here, and I just take a barred Parker and go around that rongier clip, and it makes a nice little buttonhole so that it goes right around the implant. Controls bleeding, cleans it up. Then you're going to put this scan bridge on there, which fantastic invention. Because for those of you that use intraoral scanners, we know that blood is not easily scanned. And also when it gets into somewhat amorphous areas, like kind of out in here, if there's no topography, the scanner loses its place. And so what TRI did is they made these little just junker files that clip to each other, and then you can loot them onto the scan thing. Well, this allows the scanner, the intraoral scanner, to track along these little funky geometries and give you a dead-on accurate impression without the use of photogrammetry. I didn't believe it at first. It works. I'm still a fan of photogrammetry. I swear by it, but this works.
The price is right also too, right?
Kudos to the engineers that did this, because, you know, there's a guy that I knew back in 2001, Ray Becker. He's still practicing. He's one of my heroes in dentistry. He might even be on here tonight. This guy was a genius. He knew how to take those CEREC machines and use little jigs with Siltec to line up so that you could cross a prep to a wax up. So you could take a full mouth wax up and prep all the teeth, and you could make exact copies of the wax up onto the tooth with the CEREC machine. It's the same idea. If you can give it something that it's going to read all along, you're going to have success. So I'm going to take credit for this, Chris, that I invented this in 2001, but I stole it from Ray Becker. I give him credit every time I talk about it. Now, here's some great news. Chris showed you, you got these healing abutments up here that you can print. You never have to buy a healing abutment again in your life with this system. You make your own in your office for pennies. I really am a big fan. I've got both an iMetric and I've got the little scan bodies that are specific for TRI implants right here. Chris has these, you can buy them. So these work with your iMetric. You have to download a new software patch into your iMetric software to tell it what implant this is. That's easy to do. Now, if you're going to use PIC, or this just came out, I don't know if you can buy it yet, but thank heavens those Swiss engineers. This is the 2.8 screw. This will screw on top of your TRI implant. It converts it to a 4.8 universal. You can screw your micron mapper or your PIC scan body flags onto this. And then through software, ExoCAD, and Boolean extraction, it'll predict where that implant is. So you can use a micron mapper with this system, an iMetric or a PIC or any of the other photogrammetry systems I'm not familiar with. Or you can just use the scan bridge. If you don't want to spend $45,000 on the iMetric or 29,000 on the pick, do this. If you're a quantity type guy and you're doing a lot of these cases, I'd probably stick with the photogrammetry. It just works. You're not going to convince me otherwise. So it's a great safety net to know that when my prosthetic's done, it's going to fit every single time with Photo G. This, pretty dang good. Scanner's getting better all the time, but unbelievable how good it works now. And this is the patient that we did the case on. I've known this lady for almost 30 years. She was my waitress at the Chinese restaurant that opened up next to my office in 1998. So we got to know each other there, and now her daughter is one of my lead dental assistants. So we brought her in and did the first TRI implant in our office about a year ago, and she's doing great. So went right in. I think we printed this with NextDent MFH bleach resin, so color's a little bit off. That's all we had left in the office that day. So, but she's been very happy with it. That's it. That's all I got. Open it up for questions, and I appreciate Chris giving me the opportunity to share these ideas. And it's been a little bit of a bump and grind journey to get to the point to where I'm very confident that if we're doing an implant, I want it to do that. I want it to be the TRI system. I'm looking for a dentist that can do my number 6. This tooth was root canaled when I was 15. I'm 58, so it's 43 years old. It's had 2 root canals. It looks like as thin as a taco shell. But I've been waiting for the. I don't want a stinky Nobel in there. I don't want a Neodent. It has to have a, you know, a abutment on it. I think I want my number 6 done with the TRI implant, just like on that case that I've shown you guys here today. So that's it. Appreciate you guys. Hope this is a benefit to you. I wholeheartedly endorse the system, and I thank Chris for being a great friend and mentor to me in my implant journey over the last since 2008 when we first met. So, amen.
Thank you, Dr. Winterholler. Fantastic presentation. Always one just to say it how it is, shoot from the hip, and you always seem to make things very simple to understand for everybody. So fantastic. Again, mentor to mine as well. But yeah, like you said, let's maybe open up to any questions here in the chat. I know there's one here that I'll address in a second, but please don't be shy and answer away. We'll answer away and put some questions here in the box. But while you guys are doing that, the first question is from David Severson here. It said, most all insurances pay for abutments, which is no small amount. Wouldn't dentists be taking a financial hit by going abutmentless? So even though we're reducing overhead cost, we're certainly concerned about the top line revenue you would see from the insurance in the case. So very good question. We get that question consistently. Dr. Winterholler, would you like to answer it, or would you like me to answer that one?
Well, I mean, I don't want to be one of these guys that becomes the gospel doctrine of this, but how we've got around this is that there is a specific code in the CDT that talks about a screw retained crown on a UCLA abutment. And it's a specific code. So it's a screw retained crown, and I kind of say maybe we could call the screw the abutment. Does that make sense?
It does. That's kind of where we're going with too. Yeah. So the FDA says for us, because we've certainly been now, this is going on year 5 here with TRI matrix and no abutments. So we certainly work with a lot of DSOs where this is a major concern, and we've had this addressed by outside consultants. And we have come to the conclusion, the FDA has said that the reverse engineer of that interface, that ledge on an engaging single unit crown that drops in, as you show there on that one slide of yours, coupled with that bolt screw, does serve the purpose of an implant supported screw retained crown, like you said, that can still be coded for that. So fantastic question there. So you get the benefits of removing the cost of an abutment, but still reaping the benefit of that reimbursement.
One other way that I just want to quickly mention, we had this exact question in the office this week, that, you know, when I treatment plan a lot of these cases that are now coming in, we treatment planted them as an implant, an abutment, and a crown. Then when they do the TRI, my dental assistant, that's a Girl Scout, says, well, you didn't do an abutment, so we're not going to charge that out. So how we fix this in the interim is that it's rare that we're doing, insurances are still by and large not covering implants. So we just raised the fee of the implant crown to compensate for the loss of the abutment. And so my fee for service patients, which is the majority of them, it's not an issue. I also just flat fee most of my services. So, you know, implant, abutment, extraction, crown, $4,500. That's all inclusive. If your insurance wants to cover the extraction and the implant and the crown, great. They probably ate up their maximum benefit by that time anyway. So if they don't pay for the abutment, no biggie. We're out of network, so it doesn't bother us. But those are not the answers that you wanted, probably. It's the answers that we're knocking through right now. So,
Any other questions here for Dr. Chris Winterholler? Well, if there's no other questions here, we thank you very, very much, Dr. Winterholler, for your incredible insights to implantology. The cutting edge services that you certainly provide don't go unnoticed from my end. And it's been a wonderful journey getting to know you personally and professionally. I consider you a very close friend, colleague, and thank you very much for being a part of the TRI Matrix revolution, my friend.